Isabel, Jon Venables, one of the killers of poor little Jamie Bulger, now a grown man, a fully fledged paedophile, spent all of his life ever since that horrible killing in and out of jail. He's been in jail for some time because of possessing more than 1,000 vile images of paedophilia. Now, he's been granted a parole board hearing in November, a 2-day hearing. Now, I'm not necessarily against people like him getting a parole board hearing. I mean, you know, you can't lock people up and throw away the key unless they're Lucy Letby. It's the parole board I don't trust. You know, they tried to let out the taxi rapist John Warboys. They did let out Colin Pitchfork, the schoolgirl murderer and raper. They did let out Gary Glitter after only half of his 16-year sentence for vile paedophile crimes basically throughout his life. These are dangerous people, and the parole board seems to have a mania for releasing dangerous people, and my heart goes out to Jamie Bulger's poor parents, Denise Fergus and Ralph Bulger. Denise wants to testify to the parole board. She says, if you let this guy out, he will kill another child. So it's not that he's getting a parole board hearing that I necessarily object to, but in my ideal world, he wouldn't get one. It's that I don't trust the parole board. Do you?
In a word, no. Look, this guy has been given every opportunity to build a new life, you know, at enormous taxpayer expense and resource. He was given a whole new identity, and we can argue rightly so. He was 10 when he and his friend committed one of the most atrocious crimes in British criminal history, something that no one who was around at the time will ever forget. But he was 10 years old, and he came from the most horrific, dysfunctional family background. So, of course, he had to be punished and so on and so forth. But also, I think it was right that attempts were made to allow him, after an appropriate period of time, to build a new life and become a positive member of our society. He was young enough to be able to start again. And unfortunately, time and again, he has shown that he is incapable of doing that. He has been back in prison on a number of occasions, and in recent times, you know, has had this conviction for 1,000 indecent images of children. And just pause for a minute there. 1,000 indecent images. Each one of those images is an abuse in its own right. So I'm sorry, in very exceptional, rare cases, some people just can't ever be allowed their freedom.
He's a danger to the public. It is as simple as that. Let's hope the parole board, let's hope against hope that the parole board, for once in their miserable lives, make the right decision. They always sort of say, oh, well, prisons are really crowded. Yeah, but that doesn't mean we should be letting out menaces to society. And Jon Venables, without a doubt, is a menace to society. And I think we have to give credit to Robert Thompson, his accomplice, who has rebuilt his life, and we've never heard of him since. And you said last night on the talk, it's a very good point. Why do we continue to give Jon Venables anonymity? It's about time he was named, shamed and photographed, isn't it?
I think he should now be unmasked. I think that it was fine for them to have their new identity, fine and right that they should have the new identity and be able to build their new lives. But if you repeatedly end up back in prison, then you are clearly an ongoing threat and negative drain on our society. And therefore, I think particularly, by the way, if he's going to be allowed out, we should absolutely know who he is and what he looks like, because like you, I don't trust the parole board. So my plea to them would be, if you are going to do your usual moronic thing and let out someone who is quite demonstrably a danger, particularly to children, then please can you at least show us the face of the person that you're letting out and tell us what they are now known as, so that we can all, as parents, take measures to protect our children.
Very good point. Now, lastly, let's talk about the consultants. Their synchronised strike with the junior doctors continues apace. The poor things, they only earn an average of £140,000 a year, not to mention the £500,000 or so most of them earn from their private practice. So, you know, my heart does go out to these poor people. They definitely need more money. No, they don't. But down in Plymouth, when just the junior doctors were on strike, the consultants were brought in to cover for these junior doctors. The consultants earning an average of £140,000. Quite a few of them, by the way, earning £200,000 a year from the NHS. Guess how much they were being paid per day to cover for the junior doctors above and beyond their existing massive six-figure salaries? £3,000 a day. That strikes me as NHS mismanagement.
Oh, and there's a surprise. Yeah. I mean, this is obscene, isn't it? And, you know, I've just been through a horrendous few weeks with a relative who has been critically ill and sadly died in hospital. And I have seen how desperately short of people and resources our NHS is and our hospitals are. And for doctors now to be withdrawing their labour and for others to be cashing in on it, I think is utterly appalling. We do need to pay NHS health professionals properly. Otherwise, we are not going to have any NHS left. You and I can argue about whether that might actually be a good thing.
No argument from me.
But in the meantime, there are millions of people who need healthcare. And those consultants, if they are accepting those kinds of sums of money for a day's work on top of what they're already being paid, then I think they should have a long, hard look in the mirror and ask whether they should be anywhere near the NHS, or why don't they just back out of the whole system and just go and earn privately, which they're perfectly free to do. But don't exploit the taxpayer in this way. Don't milk the system. Don't squeeze a broken system until the pips come out.
Yeah, and while these 140 grand a year consultants strike for more money, let's not beat about the bush. Without a shadow of a doubt, all of these medical strikes, the nurses, the ambulance drivers, the junior doctors are now worse than ever. The junior doctors and the consultants synchronising their strikes. Because of all of this, people have died, are dying. Patients are dying. 850,000 operations cancelled since Christmas because of these strikes. A couple of days' strikes about 2 weeks ago resulted in 30,000 cancelled cancer appointments and surgeries. People are dying because of these strikes. So since they're asking for 35%, which is an obscene amount, grotesque claim anyway, seems to me they're asking for that because they don't want a solution. And since people die because of these strikes, these political strikes, must be time to consider adding frontline medical workers to the list of professions that aren't allowed to strike. The police, prison officers, the armed forces. If they're going to go on strike and people are going to die because of it, therefore, perhaps we should consider banning them from striking.
I've always been in favour of banning strikes. I mean, my view is I'm pretty hard line on this. You know, if you don't like your job and your pay and conditions so much that you want to withdraw your labour, fine, you've got a right to withdraw your labour. And an employer has should have a right to say, well, in that case, I'll find someone else to do the job. That's how it works in the private sector. You can't go on strike if you decide you actually don't like your pay and conditions. You either negotiate to have a better deal, or you leave your job and go and find something else. You wouldn't expect to be able to just take some days off work and hold on to all your perks and privileges and the position that you have. And I would extend that ban to anybody who runs critical national infrastructure like the railways and the tube system, because that has a hideous effect on everybody when those strikes go on and on and on. And you're right about people dying, but it isn't just about people dying. It's about people getting iller. Again, I've seen this in the last few weeks with my own eyes. I have seen the way that operations are repeatedly cancelled on people who are already in hospital, already very ill. And you know what happens to those people? They are starved all day. They are not allowed anything no water, no food all day because they're on a list for an operation. And then at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, having been starved all day, they're told, oh, sorry, we didn't have time to do your operation because we don't have enough doctors. And this can happen repeatedly. And if someone is already in hospital, they are not in a fit state not to be given any food and drink.
Absolutely. Just in case anyone is still saying it, our NHS is not amazing. It is an absolute shambles. I think it's a national disgrace. Great to talk to you, Isabel, as always. Thank you so much for your time.